Good evening and welcome to the Star Chambers Show live podcast. It is a great Wednesday evening here in Lexington, Kentucky, where I, Stephen Zimmer, am broadcasting to you from, and it is episode number 445 for those of you that are keeping track. And again, shout out to the great folks, the band Far Cry for intro music. Thank you to Pete Fry. I know he's off to some great adventures with the NAMM convention and going to Thailand this month. So yeah, he's off to some cool stuff. And yes, the chat room is open and working, and it looks like, yeah, the first one in tonight was none other than the mighty Dan Clefstad. Yes, one of the hosts of Vamp Chat with Dan and Eva, which is, by the way, folks, that is back on season 2 right now, and it is roaring. And I believe that next Wednesday they have Dacre Stoker on the show as a guest. And those of you who, of course, are Imaginarium fans know that Dacre was one of our Imaginator guests a couple years back. A great guy, and you definitely want to catch that show with Vamp Chat with Dan and Eva, and that is on Podbean as well, as we are. And of course, the day after the live shows air, you can always get the show on all your favorite platforms such as Spotify and iTunes and Amazon and iHeartRadio and YouTube and all those good places. So listen where you prefer to listen on the day after. But of course, now we are live. Live shows always an adventure, and yes, you need internet connections for them to work. And last week was something else. As you know, there was a big ice storm front that moved through the Midwest, and of course, Kentucky was square in the middle of that. And hey, we got lucky as far as power goes because they did a lot of tree work this past fall. But unfortunately, a few days after the ice storm started hitting and snow and everything was falling, yeah, the internet box got encased in ice because they forgot to put on a kind of like hood when they installed it. And so, yes, it got encased in ice, knocked it out. So I was down for about a week without internet. So we apologize for not having a show last week, but we are back on track this week. And this is the first show for us of the new year since we had our show knocked out last week. So happy new year to you all. Hope you all are off to a great new year and definitely getting the creative juices flowing and doing some great stuff. And yes, see that LJ Mack is in the house. Yeah, definitely give a shout out. Great author, and yeah, a lot coming from her in 2025. So be on the lookout for her as well. And as it has been a little bit since we've been on the air live, we do have a lot of updates for you. And oh, yes, I should mention that, yes, the lovely, the vivacious, the loquacious, the audacious Holly Phillippe will be joining us as co-host in just a minute. She's just running a little bit behind, so don't panic. Holly is on the way. She will be coming here in just a few minutes. But we wanted to catch you up on all things Imaginarium, because let me tell you, it's been a lot since we last had a live show. So I do want to give you all the latest folks that have come aboard. And also, we had 6 new workshops announced. So without further ado, I will give you the latest Imaginarium updates. We welcomed author, publisher, and podcaster Lynn Tincher as a spotlighted guest. And yes, it's the same Lynn Tincher that owns From the Ground Up Books, which has 2 locations, one in LaGrange, Kentucky, and another in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. I did a signing there, great place, and we're definitely thrilled to have Lynn aboard with us as a spotlighted guest. We also announced 2 panelists, author, podcaster, poet Aaron Crittenden, and author-editor Erica R. Raymer as official panelists. And Aaron will be making a return, and Erica is coming back after a few years. And yes, she also happens to be the daughter of the one and only H. David Blaylock, who will be here as a spotlighted guest. Erica is a wonderfully talented author and editor. We also announced award-winning screenwriter, actor, director, and producer Sedona Ferretto as a spotlighted guest. Sedona is awesome, and interestingly enough, she did win an Imagine Award just for her screenplay, an original screenplay back in 2021. But she's doing great stuff, and can't wait to have her. And she is going to be involved in a very special workshop, which we are going to be announcing fairly soon. So yes, again, that's a screenwriter, actor, director, and producer, Sedona Ferretto. And then we also announced as panelists, author, publisher Sandy Sullivan. Very excited to have Sandy aboard, fantastic romance author. And then also author, editor, poet, and journalist Jen Selinsky. Jen's just one of our favorite folks, and yeah, definitely excited to have Jen back with us. We also announced a screenwriter, actor, filmmaker, and author, Rose Marie Machario, and author, screenwriter, actor Nathan Day, also as panelists recently. I think that was just a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact. And then we also today had no less than the one and only, yes, I love this one, author, editor, screenwriter, journalist, and graphic designer Anthony Taylor. Really, really excited to have Anthony. I've known him for a long while, and he is definitely one of the just best. I mean, just best in the indie scene. He was a regular contributor and editor for the British magazine Sci-Fi and Fantasy Models International. He was a columnist for Toy Shop magazine for 12 years, and I mean, his stuff has appeared in Retrofan, SFX, Video, Watchdog, Fangoria, Scream, Horror Hound, Famous Monsters, Film Facts, and Amazing Figure Modeler, and numerous other magazines. And definitely, he's a great author as well, an editor, and just a superb guest to have. And I am really excited that he's going to be joining us as a spotlighted guest. And then last but not least, I'll give you a quick rundown of the new workshops that have been added to our programming. A journey from concept to live performance, presented by Terry Chambers, representing historical figures through performance art. That's going to be a killer workshop, as well as another one presented by Terry Chambers called Create Your Own One-Person Show, a Step-by-Step Guide. So this talks about the process of creating a one-person show, how to start it, how to develop it, and it's designed for beginners and those who have been in it for a while. So yes, definitely going to be a cool workshop. Firearms, a primer for fiction writers by John Bukowski. So if you ever want to know about all that kind of stuff, like calibers and types of firearms and rifles, pistols, revolvers, everything in between, you definitely want to catch this one. I mean, this one will apply heavily to writers of thrillers, mystery, suspense, and even romance. So you want to check that for sure.
And he is going to do a Q&A to let people ask questions and give answers. So he's allotting. Yeah, it's me. He's allotting like 30 minutes for that. I stuck in here. I'm like a ninja.
You are like a ninja. I told them you were coming, so I gave them a heads up.
I am here. I had to finish my shower stuff. So hello, Dan. Dan saying hello.
Oh yes, the mighty Dan Clefstad. Yeah, I gave him a shout out early on there. And then now getting back to the workshops, we have how to write and create an audio drama fictional podcast, and this is by Devin Hilton and Tim Miller. And it's an in-depth look at the process of producing an audio drama, from pre-production through the writing process, audio process, and how to direct actors. And this is a medium that's gaining steam again. And it's interesting because it reminds me a lot of the old radio plays, like the War of the Worlds radio play, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, this is taking a new form nowadays and gaining momentum. And yeah, you definitely want to catch that. And then John Bukowski is also going to give us another workshop on military ranks and structure, a primer for fiction writers. And so, yes, for those of you that need some good in-depth military knowledge, and the course outlines and contrasts the ranks used by different branches of the military, different disciplines. And yes, this is going to be a really rich in info kind of workshop. And he also will have a Q&A attached to that. And then last but not least, the legendary Arlen Andrews Sr., one of our Imagination Hall of Fame inductee class members for 2025 is going to be presenting a short story writing workshop. And so, yes, with a focus on science fiction and fantasy, that's his emphasis. But of course, techniques and things like that can apply to all genres. So, that is going to be a workshop you do not want to miss because, I mean, Arlen is just, he's spectacular.
Harlan
And
is
he's
packed with knowledge. The man
such a
is
career. Yeah.
so intelligent, and you could go back and look at episodes. He's been on Ancient Aliens several times, um,
Mm-hmm.
and discussing ancient civilizations and everything. So, yeah, he is just a textbook of knowledge.
Yeah. Textbook of knowledge. I mean, just
Yeah,
superb. And yeah, and he even runs, even founded a think tank that helps DC with futurism and stuff like that for the U.S. government. So yeah, I
yeah.
mean, just amazing stuff, amazing stuff. And yes, we want to give a shout out to the Facts Porcupine podcast. Looks like Dwan Hearn, DL Hearn, Moon is in the house. And so,
Mm.
yes, give you guys, some shout outs there. But that is it as far as the Imaginarium updates. I mean, that was a lot. But again, we haven't been on the air since the Tommy B. Smith special at the
Oh, that's
Roundout
right. We haven't.
2024.
That's right.
So, bit longer than normal, but we had to get you all up to date. And as you can see, a lot programming, guests, great guests, and everything else. And yeah, before I quickly get to the tonight's sponsors, what do you have, Holly? Anything that you want to update us on real quick?
No, I just wanted to update on the workshops. That was the main thing.
All right.
I've got a few more, finished this week. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Fantastic. Well, tonight's show is brought to you by Ren Garcia of the League of Elder series and the amazing Sandy Lender, the genre blender herself. And so tonight we'll start off with Ren, and that's the famous question, and then we'll go over and give you a little bit from Sandy. She had a new spot coming in tonight, but her voice is out. So we're going to give you some info on some cool stuff with her, and then we're going to go ahead and play her Silver Bells spot because that is such a good novel. And if you haven't heard of it yet or gotten to check it out yet, is well worth checking out. But here's Ren.
The League of Elder dares to be unusual. It's easy to be swept away in this bold and uninhibited landscape where fantastic heroes become old friends and sinister villains inhabit every dark corner. Dare to explore things best left alone. Each book is your lantern, lighting the path to a world never before seen. So what do you say? Are you weird enough for us?
Most definitely, Ren.
Yeah, Ren, we're missing your face though. You need to come see
Big
us.
time. Yeah, we're going to start putting the heat on you, Ren, because I know you listen to the show. I am going to be putting the heat on you to come out next summer. So yeah, because there's a lot of folks asking about you and missing you. But great guy in the League of Elders series, well worth checking out if you're into speculative fiction, sci-fi, and great storytelling. So now go over to Sandy Lender, the genre blender herself. And yes, she, again, was going to have a new spot tonight, but her voice, unfortunately, is out. Hope she is recovering well. But she has a brand new book out called Capture Your Dream. And yes, this is a more nonfiction business book about going after your goals and capturing your dream, literally. And yes, you definitely want to check this one out. I am very, very familiar with this one, and it is another great book from Sandy. And tomorrow happens to be Appreciate a Dragon Day. So yeah, so for that, Sandy Says Read YouTube channel has a chapter from Capture Your Dream posted now ahead of tomorrow's Appreciated Dragon Day. So yes, in honor of Sandy, in honor of dragons, head over to Sandy Says Read. Tell them you heard about it here and check out the latest video post from Sandy with a chapter of Capture Your Dream. Definitely a book well worth, like I said, if you're looking for great insights on motivation and organization and going after your creative dream. This is definitely a book for you. Again, a great nonfiction release from Sandy. And so, because we love Sandy, we're going to give you a little bit about Silver Bells too, and then we're going to get to our awesome guest for the evening. So here's a little bit from Sandy on Silver Bells.
What happens if you schedule a Krampus movie on the Hallmark Channel? you get Silver Bells from Sandy Lender. The reviews are coming in for this new holiday horror, and readers are loving the mature female lead and the spooky Christmas setting. BestThrillers.com gave Silver Bells a highly recommended rating, saying, through striking visuals, Reindeer Creek reads like a mashup of Washington Irving's haunted forests in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the greed-induced decay of Pottersville in It's a Wonderful Life, and the glitzy electric spectacle of The Great Christmas Light Fight. Grab your copy of Silver Bells by Sandy Lender today.
And yes, thank you very much, Sandy. We love you and hope all is going well and that you are recovering and getting that voice back. So, yes, without further ado, I'm going to go over to tonight's guest for tonight. And tonight's guest for tonight, that's kind of redundant, but I'm going to give the intro here. And yes, tonight's guest is on the Star Chamber show for the very first time. And her debut literary novel was The Meeting of Air and Water. And it was a finalist in the William Wisdom-William Faulkner novel competition in 2019. Tonight, she's here to talk about her writing, her creative journey, and what's ahead in 2025. And so it's my honor and pleasure to bring on to the Star Chamber show for the very first time, Sharon LaCour. And Sharon, you should be on.
Hello.
There you are.
Hi.
I've got you.
Okay. How's it
Hello.
sound?
Welcome.
Is it okay?
Sounds loud and clear. I'm hearing you great.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And I want to definitely thank that fine fellow Dan Klefstad, because he's the one that gave us a heads up about you and connected us with you. And so we definitely want to give him a thanks for facilitating on connecting us for the show tonight. And yeah, definitely a great guy,
sure.
as you know.
Thank you, Dan.
You know. But we've got Holly on. Holly is with us too as well. Yep. Yeah, there
Hi,
he is.
Holly. Hello, Sharon.
Checking your mic.
Hello.
I'm here. Well, let's get into your what is the newest title book about? It sounds fascinating, the water and the air. I'm very curious.
Well, it's about women artists who are trying to do their thing and having some trouble with that. So it takes place in two different time periods with two women who are grandmother and granddaughter, both trying to pursue their art against kind of struggling to do that. So that's kind of the basic premise of it. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's kind of the basic premise.
And I want to know, because you live in Louisiana, correct?
Yes.
Well, one of my favorite states. I love Narlands. Love Narlands. Oh my goodness. And the Gulf. I love Gulfport, Mississippi.
Oh yeah, great. It's lovely there. Yes, me too.
It is. And my brother lived there for most of his life. And I went down frequently. I haven't been the past few years, and I'm just dying to go back. And Steve's never got to go with me down there. So, yeah, I'm trying to drag him down there because I got a nephew that lives there still, too. But, we always make a trip over to Louisiana, It's so close. But, yeah, it's fascinating. And, you could just get a plethora of creative juices flowing, I feel, in that area. There's so much to draw from. So what are some of the areas that you have drawn from to facilitate this book?
Well, that's a good question. So I grew up in New Orleans. So more than half the book takes place in New Orleans in the 20s and in the 80s. And then the other half of the book takes place in a little coastal town called Cocodrie, which means alligator, by the way, in French.
Nice.
And so Cocodrie is a little coastal fishing town. It was settled by Cajuns, Acadians, and it's kind of sad now because that whole area of the state is disappearing, of course, through erosion. So the part of the book that takes place in Cocodrie is kind of a documentation in a way of the life of the Cajun people during that time period, which is which no longer exists anymore because
Right.
they were really living in a lifestyle that was hundreds of years old since before they came to Louisiana. They brought that culture with them. So that's kind of a fascinating aspect of the book. And the interesting thing too is that the book is inspired by the photographs of a photographer who was down there in the 20s or 30s actually in this little junky boat documenting Cajun life. And so I saw these pictures when I was young of his, and that kind of inspired me to write about that area of the state. My family is Cajun, but they're not from the coastal region. They're from the middle of the state. So, um, but then New Orleans, of course, what else can I say? I mean, it's New
Yeah.
Orleans. So anything
Yeah.
you write about New Orleans is got to be interesting. And in a lot of different ways, right? So
Yeah. There's a lot of different, well, you've got the cultures, the mixing of the cultures, which is fascinating. Um, and I'll tell you, I've never seen anything like it. Was my brother was there during Katrina, and he, it hit
oh
cough parade
no.
on. Yeah, he was there, and he had to saw his way out. It took him 3 days, and we thought he was gone.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, it was horrifying. But I've never seen a group of people like that get together and bond together and help each other like I had after Katrina. I mean, the coastal area down there, there was such a bond of all the different races, all the different religious backgrounds. It did not matter,
Yeah.
Um, everybody worked together, and I just thought that was the most beautiful thing was
Yeah.
all the camaraderie. I really did.
Yeah. I don't think they would have survived it if they hadn't had that, It was so
No.
devastating in so many ways. And the city has recovered admirably, but there are definitely signs
Oh yeah.
left in the city, of Katrina.
Yeah.
In fact, part of the book takes place in this area of the lake where there used to be camps, resort camps that people stayed in the summer. And my family used to stay in one for a couple of weeks in the summer. And the camps are out in the middle of the lake on stilts.
Right.
So part of the book takes place in one of those camps. And when I go give talks at places, nobody of under a certain age has even heard of this anymore because the last one was destroyed during
Yeah,
Katrina.
they just don't exist anymore.
No, so they don't exist, and people, and they were so cool. I mean, it was just the coolest thing in the summer for us kids, on these camps.
Oh, I bet.
And if you look at some of these Louisiana Facebook groups that people who grew up in Louisiana, you'll see people who remember all these great things from when they were kids out on the camps. But that's just another thing in New Orleans that's not there. Um,
Right.
so it's sad, but it's in the book. So the book kind of preserves those things, I guess, in a way, both
Nice.
Little Woods and and the Cajun culture. So that's kind of a nice aspect of it, which, I don't know that I was really thinking in those terms when I used that setting, but
Right.
as it turns out, I guess that's a positive aspect of it now.
Yes, because people are going to be like, really? And they're going to start Googling and looking up things and wow, and learn so much about that area that they just would have never known, if you
Yeah.
hadn't documented it. So that's fascinating. I didn't know about the camp either. I didn't know that there was camps that had existed.
Yeah, right in the middle of the lake. And the other day I did a little reading in a little New Orleans neighborhood, just the coolest neighborhood called Bywater. And it's kind of an up and coming neighborhood. I don't know if you went, Holly, to the Marigny when you were in New Orleans, where all the jazz, on Frenchman Street, where all the jazz
Yes.
is. Yeah.
Yes.
So the
Oh,
Bywater is just kind of behind that along the river. And it turns out that the place I gave the reading at was a half a block from where my parents lived when they got married in 1945. So it's just all these cool little connections that keep coming up that you can't plan for, you know?
Right, right. Well, and I'm sure as you were writing this, a lot of memories were popping up that you hadn't thought about for a long time.
Yes, that's true. That is true. And people snuck in there, you know,
Yeah,
without without being invited. They just came in and made an appearance, and some of them became very important characters. So that's really fun when that happens.
that is fun. Yeah, when them characters just say, "Hey, hello, I'm here." Yeah,
Yes,
you're gonna listen to me.
exactly.
That is
Exactly.
so cool. And you said you've made some really neat contacts through your publication. So, what kind of contacts have you made
Well,
since this was published?
when I actually went, when I actually decided to, you know, when it was going to be published, one of the kind of exciting things that happened was that I made a contact with Sally Mann, who is kind of a famous photographer. I think she's in her mid 70s now, and I've been a huge fan of hers my whole life. And I mention her in the book because the book is about photography, really. It's about a young girl who receives a camera when she's about 13, and she uses the camera as kind of a vehicle to see the world in a way that she can deal with it better. And so anyway, I contacted Sally Mann because I wanted to make sure that I was um, representing her well in my novel. And so she emailed me. So we emailed back and forth and had this conversation. And I don't know, she's kind of one of my heroes. So that happened kind of during the process. But then after, um, for instance, I got to meet the grandson of the photographer who inspired the book in the first place. That was
Nice.
totally yeah, I had no idea that that would happen. He's actually named after the photographer. The cover of the book, which is a bayou scene, Bayou Barataria, is is this guy's photo, one of his photos. And so I contacted the estate to use the photo and got to meet the grandson, who's, you know, he's in his 50s now.
Right.
And then I was at a book festival, and a woman walked, and at the book festival, people would see my last name on the program, and I had three different like distant cousins come up to the table whom I have never met, who who we share ancestors, you know, from anywhere from like second or third cousins on. So that was cool.
Nice.
And then a friend that I hadn't seen for 30 years came up, and so it's just these different little things that keep
Wow.
happening. Yeah, I hadn't seen her for 30 years. She said, "I used to know someone named Sharon LaCour." And so I looked at her, and then I thought, "Oh my God, it's her." It was great. It was great. Little things like that.
That's
I mean,
neat.
it is, you know, I did move back to the state
Uh-huh.
about a year and a half ago. So some of this has to do with the fact that I've been gone and I'm just returning and making connections because of that too. It all happened kind of at the same time. So it's been a cool experience, really has.
Yeah, that area kind of gets its hooks in you, and you long for it when you're not there. And it's hard to describe that to people, but yeah, I always hate, when I was down there, and I'd hate coming home. I was like, I'd just rather stay.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
is it and what do you think it is about the area that makes it like that?
I think it's all the history. I mean, it is so rich in the arts
Yeah.
that I mean all kinds, between the writers, from famous, painters, jazz was born there. You've got the music of New Orleans, you've got, the Mardi Gras. I mean, you can't beat Mardi Gras. That's like the biggest party, anywhere.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to top Mardi Gras. And you got the whole king cake, where you hide the little baby in the cake, and you got to find that. And there's just all these little tidbits, and it's the magic of, I think, the golf. The golf is amazing. I mean, the smells, the sounds of the ocean, just the draw of the water itself, and the
Yeah,
peacefulness, and like, the camaraderie of the people. You
yeah,
meet people on the street. Everybody every time I've ever been there, I've never had any trouble with hateful people. People are always smiling. People are always willing to talk to you. You go in and out of shops, they're friendly. People don't look like, oh gosh, I hate being at work. Or no, they're happy and they're friendly to the tourist. And I mean, I personally, I would get tired of it. I'm not. I can't do retail. That's not my thing. But they're great down there, and I'm like, my gosh, they are all so happy. You know, and the
yeah.
richness, like I said, of the different cultures, and it's fascinating to me. And then the food, because
I was gonna
I'm a
say,
huge foodie. I'm a foodie, Steve.
Holly.
knows.
I was
Yeah,
waiting for you
I'll
to
get to
say
the
something
food.
about the food. I was
Yes,
waiting for you to say something about the
the
food.
beignets. I mean, come on. You ain't lived if you've not had a beignet.
Yeah. Well, and the
I
cool
mean,
thing
it's
about the golf
fascinating.
too is that the New Orleans has had a big influence, on. I mean, Mobile, Alabama is a really old city, and so you
Yep.
have, and then even if you go as far as Florida, there's so much history just along the entire Gulf Coast,
Oh yeah,
and
the
then New
trade,
Orleans,
the
yeah,
trading that went on, the trade routes and everything. That's what I said. So many people come from so many different places and brought their music, brought their
food,
passion of art, brought their writing. Yeah.
yeah. So it is I think it is a really unique. I mean, I lived in the Midwest, so I feel your pain of last week. Um,
Yeah, that
I
was sucks.
am very happy not to be in that anymore. But I think it has something to do with people are cold up north. I mean, they're
Yeah, we're
physically
cold
cold. You're
and we
running
don't have
from
no
your
sun.
car. Yeah, you're running from your car to the grocery store, then you're running back into the car, and then you're running
Freezing to death.
home. And here, it's just kind of relaxed.
Yeah. Here it's a rat race and you're
Around-
freezing.
yeah,
And
exactly.
and oh man, yeah, it's rough. And then you got the tornadoes. I mean, yeah, you get occasional hurricanes down there, but you don't get them constantly in the summer like we get, tornadoes that rip
Yeah.
through here, and bad storms and wind. And yeah, it's like, yeah, it's rough. And then your vitamin D level goes real low. All of us go into like seasonal depression
Yeah, no wonder
every
y'all are all
winter.
depressed. Yeah, everybody
Yeah,
needs to come down here for at least a week or
Yes,
two every year.
that's true.
I agree.
I'm 100%. See, Stephen, I've tried to tell you.
Yep.
I am with you. I agree. I'm dying for a vacation right now. So, and
Well,
they even got they
wait
even
till
have
after the
pelicans. They even have pelicans.
Super Bowl. Yeah,
Yeah.
Pelicans.
Yes.
What
And
about Pelicans?
oh, so they even have pelicans down there.
Yes, they
We mentioned on the show. It's one of our favorite birds. So
Oh,
We
really?
we
Well,
call the oldest grand we call
y'all
the
have
oldest
white ones.
grandchildren.
You call them what?
The oldest grandchildren, we call them the pelicans. Steven
that's their
started
nickname.
this. And
That's
it's
their
just a
nickname.
nickname we call them in our Facebook chat, our group chat with them.
Oh,
It's the
I see.
pelican.
That's
Yeah.
So
cute.
yeah, yeah, it's hilarious. He buys the oldest granddaughter. He buys her a bird, like every birthday or something. He'll buy her a different bird, but her first one was a pelican, of course.
Yeah. Yes,
Well,
we have traditions.
the Pelicans down here are brown.
Yep, the brown
Yes.
pelicans. Yeah.
Yeah, the brown ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
lots of cool
Sandy.
birds.
Yeah, Sandy Lender, we mentioned earlier. One of our sponsors. She's over in Florida, and she's got those big white pelicans. Those real
She's
huge
got big
ones.
white.
I saw those in Minnesota once. I don't know if
What?
they were lost or on the way
Wow.
somewhere else, but I saw a
Huh,
flock of them. They must go there some time of the year. I don't know.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if they migrate or what they do. I don't know. Huh, that's interesting. I thought they mainly stayed around the oceans, but huh, that's wild. I'll
Well, they
have to
got a
look
lot of
at it.
Well, they got a lot of water in Minnesota, though. They
They
got a
do.
lot of lakes.
They have a lot of
A
big
lot of
lakes.
lakes and water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
So,
true.
so it's
That is
not a
true.
bad spot necessarily. So, but but that is awesome. And about but I do want to get into a little bit of the bit about you actually won an award not after your novel came out, but while it was in progress. I want to ask a little bit about that. That you were a novel in progress finalist in the William Wisdom-William Faulkner novel competition. Yeah, tell us a little bit. That is that I'm interested in that.
Well, the novel has taken me many years to write. I started it a long time ago. Then I stopped and started taking classes and writing short stories to kind of, to work on the craft because I really wasn't trained as a writer. I'm a piano teacher by profession. I've been, a pianist my whole life. So, so I started taking classes and writing short stories and working with writers and writers groups to become a better writer. So I sent, that that version of the novel that I sent to them. I was kind of surprised. I mean, it won. Yeah, it was a finalist, but it really wasn't. Um, it's much better now than it was then. But I mean, um, it was an honor to win in that contest, and it kind of gave me the motivation, I think, to actually, um, what's the word, to hone to make the novel be even better and to continue with it because it takes a lot of work to go beyond that point and get it to as the perfection that it can reach at any given time. It was very hard. Um, so that really pushed me forward. I think winning that prize. I mean that competition. Yeah.
That's amazing. And it looks like, yeah, the funny thing was I was reading about you. Turns out that we have a little bit in common in our roots because except it was with my father. When I was a child, my father would do improv. He'd narrate like improv bedtime stories every night. And and inevitably, I mean, it was like being a kid, I love dinosaurs, so he always fused kind of like a Land of the Lost kind of
Oh, cool.
storyline where every night it was like the family having our family having adventures in the world of dinosaurs. And when my right hand buddy was Tommy the Tyrannosaurus Rex and all that, and I mean my dad was yeah, he did. And I read that you had a similar route with your mother narrating a bedtime story every night. So I think that's cool because that has
And it
such a
was
major
did it
influence
have
on us.
yeah, it had a big effect on you, you think?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Because
Yeah.
I didn't. Later, my mother read me Lord of the Rings, like the
Oh.
trilogy, every night, and then The Hobbit, and then after that, she gave me the Chronicles of Narnia, and that was how I got into my reading phase on fantasy late when I was 7 and 8 and 9.
Uh-huh.
But before that, my dad, had been doing these improv stories with me. But I definitely, I credit all that with myself becoming a writer and a
Yeah.
storyteller. So yeah, it had a
Yeah.
huge influence.
I think it does too. She would I would say, tell me a story out of your head. And that's what she would just make it up as she went along. And then some of them developed into becoming, how kids are, they always want the same one, tell me that one again, again, again. And
Yeah,
and you get so tired of telling them the same one. But she ended up writing down, she ended up writing down several of them, which we still have the written
Oh
copies
wow.
of it. Yeah.
that's
That's
awesome.
cool.
And
Yeah,
she encouraged me constantly. I mean, she really, you know, she was an unusual person in that way, in that um, she wasn't really raised in an environment where cultural endeavors were considered. I mean, she was raised during the Depression, and they had 10 children. But
Oh.
she was an opera lover. She listened to the Saturday opera
Uh-huh.
every week, and
Uh-huh.
she really encouraged my writing constantly.
I
So
think
I
it's
really credit her.
I think that's fascinating that Stephen, that reminds me, your mom was very much like me. I was not raised with creative parents at all. My dad was a drill sergeant. He worked at a casket company. You know, mom was a homemaker, and it's like no nonsense, blue collar, hut 2, 3, 4. That's how, everything ran. And here's me, little me, watching PBS, right? Because I loved to watch Julia Child cook. I loved to watch, the operas, the ballets, and my mom would say, I don't know why you watch a crap. It's a waste of time. It's just stupid. And she always would say that. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
it's not to me. That I'd rather watch that stuff than I did cartoons. So I think the juices are already there. I mean, you're born with it or you're not, and they could develop as time goes on, but
Yeah.
definitely I had to be born with it because it wasn't my environment, that's for sure.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. That
Yeah.
is interesting
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
how does it happen? On the other hand, though, if you don't, I'm a real believer in arts education. I mean,
Yes.
if kids don't have the opportunity, if they don't see people creating around them somehow, maybe even
Mhm.
if it is on PBS, if they
Right.
never encounter it, they don't have that as an outlet. They don't get to explore that as an outlet, and that's I mean, that's kind of one of my missions. It's one of the reasons I teach piano because I can see how important it is for kids to have that outlet to express themselves.
Exactly.
I think everybody should have, and some people do it through cooking, some people do it through gardening, I mean, but it's just, it's very, I think it's uniquely human and very important. Maybe the most important thing. I mean, obviously y'all believe that because
Yeah,
that,
we are.
that's what
Mhm.
the Imaginarium does, right? I mean,
Yeah.
And
um,
that's what we tried to instill into the grandchildren. The reading, their passions. The oldest grandson does photography, and now the two of the oldest, I've got six, so we've got six grandkids.
wow,
But
great.
yeah, three of the oldest live with us, but they're doing a podcast now, a wrestling podcast, because they love wrestling. Dwan, I know you're out there. You know how much I love wrestling, and they're doing a wrestling podcast. So the whole downstairs now living room,
The
it's got
studio.
it's got the
It's the
backdrop,
studio.
they've got a stand, they've got the
Oh,
camera
that's
stands,
great.
Lights.
they're doing the live podcast now, which
Yep.
Steve's like, do it. He buys them
Mhm.
stuff to, help him do it with,
Yep.
and go ahead, do this. That's a good outlet for them, and it's something they're passionate about, wrestling. So
Mhm.
Yeah,
whatever, I don't care as long as it gets them creating. They're homeschooled, so they need that. So get them creating
yeah,
and
Mhm.
yeah.
communicating with their peers.
That's
Yeah,
great. I think it's great because the schools, even all over the country, they're starting to shut down the arts programs, get less and less and less time
Oh
and
yeah.
money,
Mhm.
and it's tragic, So we have to all do our part to keep it going, keep it alive.
Definitely. And your own creative path is interesting, and you hinted at it just a minute ago when you mentioned that you teach piano because your first big before you got into serious fiction writing, you went on to study music and got a master's degree in piano, and you're a pianist and a piano teacher, which I think
Yeah,
is amazing. Yeah, so you have a whole musical side
that's
that
cool.
that preceded you're getting into writing fiction on a really intensive basis.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I always wrote, like I said, my
Mm.
mom encouraged me, but I um I remember listening to when I was young, when she'd be listening to opera and stuff, I always wanted to know, I had to know why it was that music was making me feel the way it was. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
what is that composer doing right now that's making me cry for God's sake? I mean, with writing
Yes.
it's more obvious, but with music, so I decided to study music to figure out why, and maybe it took some of the magic away for for me, but I don't, not entirely, that's for sure. Um, so
Do you
yeah.
do you do you listen to music when you write, or does you draw inspirations from music directly for writing? Do the two fuse together? Basically, is what I'm kind of getting at for you.
I've thought about that a lot, and I find it difficult to when I'm listening to music, I have to just listen to it. In other words, I can't. I can do some things when I'm listening to music, but not writing. I can't write when and listen to very rarely. I'm if I especially if I'm at a certain stage of the writing process, but um, if I do listen to music when I write, it's music that is old, like
Mhm.
Renaissance music or medieval music or something like
Yes,
that.
I
Love it.
agree to that stuff. Yes, the
Yeah.
ambiances, love it.
Yes,
Yeah,
that seems to help me, but anything that requires because I'll always be asking myself it distracts me, because I want to listen to it and figure out, I guess from all the training of having to figure out music in my life and listen
Hmm.
to it carefully, it's hard not to. So I'm
that's
not
like
really
us.
sure.
I understand that perfectly because we're editors too. So it's hard to when I'm reading a book. I'm reading Holly right now by Stephen King, and I found a missed period the other day. It's hard. You can't get out of this mindset. So here I
Oh
am
yeah.
trying to relax reading, but I've got the editing eye turned on. You can't help it. So I
No, yeah.
understand that.
It's real
Yep.
similar. And I mean, as a
Hmm.
writer too, I'm sure I mean, it's
Hmm.
hard to read a novel without every now and then
Hmm.
saying, gee, that sentence was poorly constructed.
I
So
wouldn't have wrote it that way.
I
Yeah.
could have done a better job. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it takes you out of the flow,
Yeah.
and then yeah, it's the same occupational hazard. Exactly.
Yeah, sometimes I have to batten down the hatches on my editor brain just so I can enjoy novels
Yeah,
and
exactly.
just
Yeah.
stop trying to overthink when I'm reading.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
music's definitely the same way.
it is, and Stephen don't get, but when I'm reading, he likes quiet, but he can handle some of my stuff. But mainly, I listen to Mozart. Mozart's my number one. I've got Beethoven and Bach, and all that. But I that's what I like to listen to when I'm reading. Have a glass of wine, listen to Mozart, and read. That's my idea of a perfect
Oh,
day.
okay. That sounds
You know,
nice. Yes,
it's
exactly.
wonderful. But and the same way with writing, the ambiances, like you were saying, the medieval taverns or Harry Potter, library, or something like that. I'm listening to on YouTube just for some background.
Yeah.
But I can't
Hmm.
do anything with words. If the songs or any other I'm listening to has words, I cannot read to that. I cannot write to that. That distracts me. Where Stephen blares heavy metal music when he writes.
Well,
Really?
yes. Well,
Yes,
hard rock and other forms, yeah, yeah. But it's I don't get distracted, even with like lyrics
I
or
don't
whatever.
understand.
I tune into the energy a bit, so I'll skew my playlist according to the kind of scenes I'm writing, so it
Oh, really?
fits the
Oh, that's
energy of it,
interesting.
and it
Yeah, I
really,
could always
that's
tell
what I draw off of, and yeah, she knows that I'm writing a high
a battle
action
scene or
scene or action
mhm,
scene or something. She knows that I'm doing something more
yep,
atmospheric and introspective or a character
Uh-huh.
scene. My music will
yep,
change, but
Oh,
it's
interesting.
I do, yeah,
Interesting.
music, yeah, yeah, it's a big part of my writing world. So yeah, but again, it's not for everybody. I know a lot of people that are like what you describe, and yeah, they get distracted with the
mhm,
lyrics and so forth. But yeah, I'm fortunate that yeah, it doesn't do that to me because I do
Yeah.
enjoy, because it does another purpose too. It creates a bubble so that I don't get
yep,
distracted by what's going on outside the
In the house.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah, or anything like that. It creates a
Well, there's
creative
that.
bubble.
That maybe I should try that because,
Yeah.
then I wouldn't hear the cat whining and the dog barking and all that
yes,
stuff.
yes. That's why, and it's say when I edit, if I'm editing a romance, I'll be listening to something wistful and nice and like Bridgerton or whatever. But if I'm editing a horror story, I'm listening to suspenseful music, something scary, or a haunted house background, or something like that. I do tie in whatever I'm
Oh, okay.
editing. I will listen to that. Yeah.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. Well,
Hmm.
a friend of mine was talking today about she took the month of December off from her writing, and just did a lot of reading and writing a little bit of poetry. And she said she didn't even listen to the music that she listens to when she writes because she wanted she wanted to get her book out of her head. So she couldn't even listen to the same music that she listens to when she writes the book because that would make her start thinking about the book again. I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
really interesting.
Yeah, it makes
Um,
sense.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
sure
the
does.
relationship, people's relationship of music and writing, it is an interesting topic.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe I'll
And with
play around with that a little and start listening more, see what happens. Who
See what
knows?
happens. Yeah.
set your scene. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's and with you being a pianist, so yeah, yeah, that's a whole other level. That's
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
fantastic. And you
yeah.
teach piano too, huh?
I do. Yeah, I still
Yeah.
teach. I teach children mostly, although I have adults too, and I really do love teaching. I feel like I learn well. Not only do I because I love the kids and they crack me up all the time. I mean, they just keep me
Oh yeah.
smiling. But I learn a lot about music all the time by teaching. So it keeps it alive for me, I guess. Even though I've been doing it for so many decades, I still really enjoy it. So I think I would like to do. I'm starting to think that it would be fun to do a writing workshop of some kind. I've never done anything official like that, but I feel like I'm at the point where that would be an exciting thing to do, some kind of a writing workshop
Yeah,
to teach
with your
one. Yeah.
background, absolutely. I think it'd be
Oh
very
yeah.
fascinating in the kind of route that your creative path has taken. I think that'd be wonderful. And how are some of your writing influences, by the way, as far as
Um,
you personally?
well, I used to read and still do read classics a lot. Like I mean, I still read Charles Dickens, and I read.
Mhm.
I'm starting to read George Eliot. I love all those people, Thomas Hardy. But I think that as far as my writing goes, the southern the southern writers are probably the most influential for me. Like Flannery O'Connor and Eudora Welty, those women,
Mhm.
Carson McCullers. I used to read a lot of Virginia Woolf.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so those women, Southern women, and then Walker Percy, he's a writer from the New Orleans area. Well, he was born in North Carolina, I think, but kind of there's an ironic twist to and there's a dark side to the Southern, William Faulkner, that appeals to me.
Mhm.
Although it doesn't take over all my writing, it still kind of has its influence on me, I think. I think there's something very attractive about it.
Very nice, very nice. And yes, I wanted to also get into. We've been talking about the meeting of air and water, but what are you currently working on now? Like, what's ahead? What's on the map for you as far as your works in progress or writing projects?
Well, I have two novels that I'm working on, and maybe you can give me your viewpoint on this conundrum. But I'm working on a historical novel about a couple who moves to Louisiana from France in the late 18th century.
Oh.
So I
Nice.
yeah, I placed these two, and it's kind of a class story because she's a she's been trained in a convent and he's like a peasant farmer. So they're two different classes and they fall in love. Um, and then they come to Louisiana, when it's basically a wilderness, other than the
Mhm.
city of New Orleans. So there's that book. That book's finished, and I have to edit it. That's been that's a difficult. That was difficult. Um, And then I have a book about a teenage girl growing up in the Depression in Mississippi, and that was really fun. And I loved it. I loved writing it. It's not that it was easy, but I don't have all that historical detail to worry about, in that one. So those are
Right.
the two I'm working on, and I'm trying to decide which one would be good to do next, I guess. And I haven't fully decided yet which one to focus my attention on. I mean, I could go to the one that's calling me, so to speak, the one that is drawing me in more. But right now I'm kind of confused about which one to move on with. But those are the two things. So they're both exciting for me. So
Yeah, I believe in always following that inner voice that urges you in a direction, nudges you. So if that helps,
yeah,
but I love I
yeah,
love the I love the distinct settings. I'm seeing that with talking about your first novel as well as these two projects. I love the way you have very distinct settings in each of your books.
yeah. To me, I think one of the things that I love about a book is the atmosphere that's created by the setting.
Hmm.
And not everybody, that's not true about everyone, and it's also not true about every novel. But that seems to be one of the things that draws me into a novel, and what I try to create when I write a novel is a setting that um, draws people in and that people like to be inside of. You know, um, and I suppose I'm kind of a nostalgic person, so I go back in time a little bit.
Well, in a lot of ways, I think settings become like another character if done right, and I think they almost would you say it, Holly? As far as you know
Yes.
what I'm talking about, yeah, a
Yes.
setting can almost be like another character in a book if it has a lot of distinctive qualities and things like that. And yeah, it sounds like that's what you have is your settings almost like another character brought to the table with the kind of atmosphere and feeling and such that it
Yeah, that's
has.
what people have told me. Well, plus the setting also reflects the culture that is,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, so those two things kind of
Absolutely,
go hand in hand. Yeah. Um,
absolutely. But I mean, they both sound great. But yeah, I've always been a firm believer in following that inner nudge, whether it's a character calling you to write about them or whether it's
yeah.
a story idea that's really pulling at you to focus on it. I mean, yeah, definitely. That's my 2 cents, though. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably
No, that's
leading
good
me on
Or
that
advice.
you
path.
work
Yeah.
on multiple, like Steven. He can work
Yeah,
on
I have been
several
able
books
to.
at
Yeah.
once, which that would drive me bonkers. But
Well,
yeah, he does that.
never more than a couple projects, as long as I keep the
Still,
writing sessions separate. I don't work on the same book
right.
or same. I don't work on two
Two
projects
different
in one
books in the
session.
same session.
Right, right.
Right.
Well, are the two projects really contrasting
Yes. Hmm.
oh, they
They're
are. Well, that's what
they're
these two
they're
books
almost
are
in my
really.
head. Yeah.
Yeah. So that might work. I can see though it might drive me crazy, like Holly says.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know if
would
I
be
can do it. Yeah.
my ADD brain. That would be like, oh man, yeah,
Where am I? What day is it?
that's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
Most recently, I've
When did I
been
brush
doing
my hair? Yeah.
a single project at a
Exactly.
time. But in the past, I have been able to do like a couple projects, like usually short fiction alongside like a novel project, but typically. But lately, it's been singular projects, one after the other. So yeah, but I have been able to
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not any, yeah.
So I don't know. I'll have to see what happens. But
It might be something worth trying. I mean, if one character from the one story is, biting at you, you could write a little bit, and then if you get an inspiration, or you hear a song, or you see something on TV or something that reminds you, or you read something
mhm.
of your other book, then you could go write that down, and just let it ebb and flow.
Yeah, I know that might work.
It sounds
Yeah.
like you also enjoy research, something I love. I have a passion for doing historical
Lord
research.
does it.
But
Yeah.
looking at your settings, I'm guessing that you have a passion for the research side of things.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I'm all that great at it, honestly. But I get done, there are certain aspects that pull me in and then I go crazy. Like for instance, there's this phenomenon on the Mississippi River. They're called river boils. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
They're like they're like little, what do you call it? Like little water spouts that occur in the Mississippi River. And they can be like 5 feet high in the air and in a circle. And they're kind of violent, they kind of create.
Wow.
So if you're in a canoe, and and you get to one of these river boy. So anyway, I read about this and I thought that's the kind of weird thing that I can spend, a whole day trying to figure out what a river boil is and reading every. But if you ask me to look up little details like what, who killed who at what battle or, what, I'm not going to be good at those little details. But when it comes to like interesting events or strange phenomenon, I'll be at the computer all day trying to figure them
Sure.
out. So
That's me. Yeah. Yeah,
The
that's me.
famous rabbit holes that we get
yes,
into.
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
We'll be
It's
watching a
part of
show or something together, and it's like, here we go. We have to pause because we're both
oh right.
Googling. We're both
Yep.
Googling.
Yep.
Yeah, we do that too.
Yes. Yeah, more than once.
The
But yeah,
mind of creative.
and sometimes the research, as you were also kind of referring to, it can really inspire even more to the story when
Oh
you're,
yeah, for sure.
things that are.
Well,
And
and the other kind of research that's fascinating to me is like I was telling you about meeting Sally Mann. So when I finally started emailing with her and asking her if I was representing her photography method, which she uses these old glass plates, those from the 19th century, the glass plate photography. She
Oh,
Mhm.
uses that.
yes.
Yeah, she uses that to get these weird effects, or she did in this one period of her life. Well, she started to tell me all kinds of stuff. It was like an interview with her through email where she started telling me all kinds of stuff that I didn't know about that process. And that kind of research is really fun because you're actually talking to an historic or a person, who was actually doing a certain thing at a certain time.
Mhm.
In real time, so that's that I could do forever.
Well, a fun fact about those plates, the
Yeah.
glass and the metal, when they started doing the tin plates, people don't realize they had Photoshop, right? Because not our modern day Photoshop. However, with the Victorians' interest in the spiritual and mystical world, there were fakes, right, that would add in spirits or like
Oh, yeah.
deceased loved ones get that from another tin type or a glass, and they were somehow able to shoot them in there so they'd be in the background and
Yeah,
they looked
layer 'em in.
real. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Mhm.
looked
Yes, it
real,
is.
and that's fascinating. If you want to go down a
Oh,
rabbit hole,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I
Victorian
said,
age.
my gosh, that was like modern day Photoshop, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, I think I have seen some of that kind of stuff now that you
Yeah.
mention
Mhm.
it.
Oh,
Um,
it's
well,
cool.
she did that. She used to take pictures of. She lived in Virginia and North Carolina, where she would go to old Civil War battlefields and use
Oh,
these old cracked, distorted lenses to kind of give these effects that are almost ghost-like. I mean, I
yeah.
Mhm.
wouldn't call them ghosts, but you can easily
Ghostly.
imagine a ghost in them because they're so eerie looking. Yeah.
A little
So
bit
it's
of
a
an
similar, but I didn't
ethereal
know
feel
they
to it.
could alter. Yeah. Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
they did. They did alter them,
Yeah.
and it was quite fascinating. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was neat that some of them got, clever enough to be able to do that with, it was just beginning. The
Photography in general. Yeah. It was the
photography was
beginning of
just beginning.
photography.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, at the baby steps, so the baby stages. Yeah, it was
Well,
quite fascinating.
in my book, she one of the things Dolores is the main character's name, and she gets her own dark room when she's still a teenager, and what she notices is that things always show up in her pictures that she didn't see when she was taking the picture. So almost like in a spiritual way, there's a bird on the windowsill that she didn't notice when she took the picture, and there it is, which is not exactly what you're saying, but it's kind of
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's always interested me because you never really know what the camera's going to perceive sometimes. I'm not much of a photographer myself, but that's what I've read that they say, things show up, which,
Well, I do have a fascinating picture, Sharon, of one of my trips to Narlands. I was I was in the French Quarter. I can't remember what street I was on, but I was in the French Quarter, and I took this picture of one of the old buildings, that had been there for quite some time, and I didn't see anything with the naked eye. Right, I was just snapping pictures of the architecture because I love Victorian and pre-Victorian, things.
yeah,
So I love that time period. So I'm taking pictures of all this. I get home, develop the pictures, and me and my mother were sitting there because that was back in the day when we actually had to develop pictures. These were,
yeah,
you had to
exactly.
take them to Walmart and develop them. And so we're out there and we're looking through these pictures, and I mean, I got chills all over me. I was like, what? It looks like, and I mean, it's a dead ringer, no pun intended, but it looks like a little girl, a ghostly girl. She had white on, looks like she has a little white lacy nightgown on, like long hair in the window.
Oh,
And
wow.
I never seen that. That I never seen that with my eyes.
Right.
But it developed, and I've showed it to Stephen and
Yeah.
a lot of
It's
people, and
distinctive. Yeah,
they're
that's
like,
not.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
distinctive. It's right
very
there.
distinctive. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
Wow.
wild
That's
stuff.
so cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Evan,
exactly what I mean.
yeah.
That's really cool though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's always fascinated me. You know how when you're driving somewhere, like out in the woods, out in the country, and you see some old abandoned house, I always imagine that
Yes.
there's people standing in the windows, but it's just my imagination. But it's that kind of thing, that,
Think about it. Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. It's a
certainly
really,
New
fascinating.
Orleans has no shortage of
Oh,
supernatural lore.
well,
I mean,
yeah, that's
there's
true.
plenty
no.
down there to delve into for
And then
sure.
of course my love of, I'm a closet vampire. So yeah, that's the place I feel at home. I love it. I
Yeah,
love my vampire.
I wonder if Dan's vampire is going to make it down in New Orleans someday.
Yeah,
Finale.
Oh, I
Dan.
know he will.
I
I
think
know he will.
that's got to be on the books there sometime in the future. One would think.
Road trip, Dan. It's a tax, deduction, research.
Hmm. Well, I think he's getting ready for some kind of exploration because he's been having all these pictures on Facebook lately of him with looking very dashing and debonair, kind of James Bond-esque and Indiana Jones-ish, and yeah,
The
he's got
dark
this
glasses.
showing off this very snazzy look lately. So he might be getting
Well,
ready to go on some grand adventure. I
what he
think.
cooked yesterday, he gave me the recipe for because I'm telling you right now, that looked delicious. I had made a post about how everyone, and even boys, should know how to sew a button, cook, clean, and do all this stuff. It's not just a woman's chore. It's everybody should be taught this. And he's like, "Listen, I'm making a meal right now," and he's showing me he's telling me what he's eating, and I said, "That sounds delicious. I'm gonna try that." So then he gave me the recipe, and oh
Well,
man,
what
it was
was it? Now
phenomenal.
you have to tell me what
Well,
it was. Now.
he had these soft boiled potatoes. Okay, he boiled these little, the little taters,
Uh huh.
soft boiled, and so you got to do that first. They got to be soft boiled and done. And he put them in a pan with bacon grease, fried them with a little. I believe there was onion involved, and then peppers. Um, Jalapenos. I guess you could use any kind of bell pepper. I don't particularly like green peppers, so I would use red pepper, yellow pepper, orange peppers, julienne them, and fry it with that. And then he ended up let's see, after those were done, he put eggs on top. So he ended up frying like 3 eggs and put the eggs on top of that. Now,
Ah.
Dan, if I'm forgetting anything, you're going to have to remind me, but it's in my feed. I don't know I don't know if we're friends or not on Facebook, but yeah, if we're not, we need to be, because yeah, it's on my wall. But you'll have to ask Dan about it. Garlic. That's it. Dan says garlic. Yes, got to have lots
That
of garlic.
figures, Mr. Vampire. Yeah, with his garlic.
Garlic. Dan,
That
it
figures.
looks phenomenal, and he says it was. And
Sounds great.
hey, bacon grease, garlic, I'm there. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
that's all I need. That's all I
Yeah,
need
that
to know.
sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. So, Sharon, what do you have coming up on your schedule for 2025? Because we always love to give our guests a chance to promote anything you have going on as far as appearances, events,
Oh, okay.
anything like
Thank
that.
you. Well, the big launch tour, start of the tour, book tour, or whatever, is next week.
Nice.
On the 23rd. It's a little book party at a really cool bookstore in New Orleans called the Blue Cypress Books on Oak Street, uptown, right where the river turns off Carrollton Avenue. And it's a little party there'll be food and drink, of course, because it's New Orleans. And that's the big thing. And then after that, I'm going to Fairhope, Alabama, which is a beautiful little town right on the bay. Is it called Fairhope Bay? No, what's it called? I can't remember.
No.
But Mobile Bay. It's on Mobile Bay. And
Okay.
they have a little bookstore there I'm going to do an event at. What else do I have? I have another reading in Covington, Louisiana, another beautiful little town where Walker Percy is from. So, yeah, I have a few things coming up, and it's really fun, very fun and exciting. So, and I have Dan to thank for some of those. So.
Oh yeah, he's a hard worker. I know he is. So what sort of platform or social media contacts do you want to share for people to connect with you and follow you online and learn more about your work?
Oh, well, I have a website, which is just Sharon, www.sharonlacour.com, and that has links to everything. And you can actually read a lot of my short stories on the ones that were published online, and some of them that were in print are also available right on the website. And then I have a Facebook writer page at Sharon LaCour Writer. So those are the two main ones, and an Instagram, Sharon LaCour Writer. So that'll keep people, posted about all the stuff coming up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And just for the listeners, her last name is spelled LACOUR. So LaCour.
Right. Exactly.
Just make sure they get that, because it's
Thank
your
you.
website does come right up. That's where I was reading all about you first.
Yes.
I heard about you and from Dan. And is there anything that we have not touched on tonight that you want to make sure you got out there as far as topics?
Well, I'm trying to think. Well, the only other thing is that the photographs that inspired the book were taken by a man named Fonville Winans, Winans, and you can go to his they have a really nice website where you can look at hundreds of pictures of Louisiana from the 1930s on. He eventually ended up with a portrait studio in Baton Rouge, but for the early part of his life, when he first started taking pictures, those pictures of Louisiana are, they really do document a period of history that is no longer. And so I think your listeners might be interested in checking out that website. And that kind of gives us a feel. If you look at those pictures, you get a feel for what it feels like to read my book too, I think. So so that's the only thing, I think.
Nice.
I'm going to check that out myself. It sounds
I definitely want to check them out.
I think you'd enjoy, especially if you enjoy Louisiana.
Yes.
So, and I hope you both get down here at some point. That would be nice.
Yes, I'm
We'll
going to drag him
plan
down.
on it. We're way overdue for a proper vacation. So I
Yeah.
told Holly that we're hoping to make that happen sooner than later. So
Good.
definitely we'll come down and visit and check everything
We'll have
out.
to let you know when
Yes,
when
please
we're heading
do.
down to Narlands. And yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
please do. That'd be great. I love showing off my city.
Absolutely. But it's been a great night getting to learn about your work and about you, and I really appreciate your time, and definitely want to have you back on the show as you progress forward with your new projects. But I will just say thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to Holly to close things out with you. But I appreciate your time.
Thank
It's
you,
been
Stephen.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Sharon, you're welcome back anytime. I want to hear about your upcoming adventures and your upcoming books and your signings that you're going to be doing. That's fascinating.
Okay. Well, I really
Definitely.
appreciate y'all having me on. It's been really fun. It's nice
Well,
meeting
thank
both
you.
of you virtually.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Okay. Y'all take care.
Well,
Stay warm.
We'll
yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Do
we'll
our
try.
best.
It's supposed to get like below zero next week, so I
Oh,
just can't
no.
wait. Yeah,
No.
just can't wait.
Okay.
Enjoy. Good
Thank
night,
you.
Sharon.
Okay. Good night. Bye-bye.
Everyone in the chat room and the listening world that listen to the recording afterwards. We understand not everybody can join the live, but all you listeners out there, join us next Wednesday, same place, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. Another great guest, another great chat. For the rest of the week, be creative. Good night.